In the quiet farmland of Plainfield, Wisconsin, nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. It was the kind of town where people left their doors unlocked and waved at passing neighbors. But in the fall of 1957, that peaceful routine shattered because of a man most locals knew simply as Ed. Ed Gein was the last person anyone suspected of anything dark. He was polite, shy, and always willing to help fix a fence or babysit the kids. People thought he was odd, sure, but harmless. No one imagined what was happening inside the peeling, isolated farmhouse he lived in alone. Ed grew up under the strict rule of his mother, Augusta, a woman whose harsh sermons about sin shaped every moment of his childhood. She kept Ed and his brother away from outsiders, convinced the world was corrupt. And to Ed, her word was the only truth he ever knew. When Augusta died, something inside Ed broke. The farmhouse became a tomb of memories, rooms sealed off and left untouched, exactly as she had left them. Ed's loneliness deepened, and the house around him decayed. Without his mother's voice anchoring his world, he began slipping into a life of isolation and strange fantasies that blurred reality and imagination. For years, locals shrugged off Ed's odd behavior. They didn't ask questions when he boarded up his windows. They didn't wonder why no one ever visited. Plainfield was a small town. People minded their own business. But on November 16, 1957, everything changed. That morning, hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared. Her son, the deputy sheriff, rushed to the shop and found blood on the floor and an overturned register tape. The final name in the logbook was one no one expected: Ed Gein. Officers headed to his farmhouse, expecting a routine check-in. Instead, their flashlights revealed a scene that instantly became national news. Inside the cold, cluttered rooms, they uncovered evidence of murder, and something far stranger. They discovered items made from human remains. They found a home transformed into a museum of nightmares, built by a man living in a world entirely divorced from reality. Investigators soon realized that many of the remains inside the house didn't belong to recent victims. For years, Ed had been visiting local graveyards at night, digging up the bodies of women who reminded him of his mother. In his delusional mind, he believed he could somehow bring her back, or at least recreate her presence. When Ed was questioned, he didn't rant or rage. He didn't deny anything. He spoke softly, almost politely, describing his actions as if they were ordinary chores. He confessed to killing Bernice Warden and tavern owner Mary Hogan, though he often slipped into confusion, unsure of what was memory and what was fantasy. Psychiatrists later concluded that Ed lived in a world shaped by delusion, grief, and a desperate longing to reconnect with the only person he had truly loved. The case shocked the nation. Newspapers struggled to describe what police had found without sounding unbelievable. Hollywood would later draw inspiration from Ed's crimes, creating some of the most iconic characters in horror. Norman Bates in Psycho, Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. But the real Ed Gein was not a chainsaw-wielding monster. He was a deeply disturbed, isolated man whose mind collapsed under years of trauma and loneliness. Ed Gein spent the rest of his life in psychiatric institutions. He gardened, read magazines, and rarely spoke about his past. When he died in 1984, locals hoped the story would fade into history. But it didn't. Because the tale of Ed Gein forces us to confront something unsettling. Not the idea of a violent predator lurking in the shadows, but the possibility of a seemingly harmless neighbor hiding a world of darkness behind a polite smile. In Plainfield, the farmhouse is gone now, but the legend remains. A chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest stories don't come from Hollywood at all. They come from the quietest towns and the quietest men.